Hey, what's up, Potsers? Let's take a look at this endgame by the great world champion Capablanca. It's a queen and pawn ending, and here Capablanca has the black pieces. You'll notice the material is equal, queen and four pawns versus queen and four pawns, but the important thing to notice here is that black's pawns, these three pawns right here, are all protected. And this one isolated pawn over here is not easily attacked because there's a white pawn sort of shielding it from any attack. Meanwhile, the white pawns are separated. White has three different pawn islands, and these two pawns are sort of easily targeted by the queen. So black begins by playing f6, and now white plays queen e3. Another opportunity or possibility here for white would be to try something like queen e2 check, looking to push the black king back from its centralized position. Now, black could play, for instance, d6, and after queen e4, looking to maybe exchange queens, black has this move g5. And after an exchange, the queen would capture on g5, which would leave black with three pawn islands. However, after king f3, obligatory move now, black would gobble up this b5 pawn and be up a pawn. If queen f4 check, simply king d7. And you might be wondering, why not king e7 to defend this f6 pawn? Well, I'll give you a second to figure that out. What will black play if the queen captures the undefended pawn on f6? You probably noticed the queen cannot capture this pawn because queen f1 would skewer the queen. Okay, so that's not what occurred in the game, though. Instead of queen e2 check, white played the move king e3, stepping their king back to defend this pawn. And now, a nice subtlety, this move queen c4. It still eyes this pawn on b5, but it also touches these two pawns on the rank. So now g3 was played by white. White could have tried, for instance, queen b1, the idea being to target this g6 pawn. And now black has this idea of queen c3 check. After king e2, queen takes d4. The d4 pawn could not really be held. If king f4, we just take it, and if king e4, simply pawn check, and then we'll be grabbing the pawn anyway, so the king can step away, and after queen takes pawn, if queen takes g6, now comes this check on e5, and after king f3, queen takes b5 again, grabbing this undefended pawn. And there's still a lot of work to do, but okay, clearly black has the better endgame here. Okay, but instead what happened was g3, simply protecting these two pawns. And now Capablanca plays g5. Pawn takes. And here, white goes after this h pawn and targets it with the move queen h2. What's the best way to deal with this threat on our pawn? We can't push, because if we do, simply pawn takes and we'll be losing the pawn anyway. Our king has no immediate way to defend the pawn, nor does our queen, and so what should we do? Well, Capablanca plays queen b3 check, and now the king steps forward to e4. It's important to notice that any of these retreats would not be ideal for white, because, for instance, let's say, obviously, if king d2 or king e2 were played, either of these, there would be another skewer. The king would move and we would win the queen. And so if the king were to retreat to f2, where after the skewer the king has a square to defend, g1, defending the queen, Simply reducing to this endgame after queen takes, king takes would be winning for black because our king will quickly gobble up these pawns over here, and the b pawn will be a passer. This 2-to-1 majority could defend itself. Okay, and so because of that, the king could not step backwards to the second rank, but rather had to step forwards to e4. And now a really nice move. So the problem persists, the attack on the h-pawn. It could be defended somewhat awkwardly by this queen move, but there's a much stronger move here that Capablanca comes up with. If you want to pause and see if you can find it, now's a good time. He plays this move g4. Of course, his position is a little bit better, and lots of moves were perfectly fine there, but I really like this move. So first, it sort of begs the question, what if just simply queen takes pawn? What did he have up his sleeve? Let's see if you can spot it. There's a mate in 1. Queen f3, game over. Checkmate. Really nice mate pattern there. And so, of course, white did not take the pawn, but instead defended the f3 square with queen e2. Now, simply queen takes g3. Now, you might be wondering, okay, why didn't white play something like queen g2 or f2, where both this square and this square are held by the queen? Well, queen g2 doesn't work. See if you can spot why. Queen d5 is another skewer, and the queen would be falling off from the chessboard, so that's not going to be sufficient. And if queen f2 were played, then again, queen d5 check is still good, but you also could play the sort of simple and direct, simply queen takes b5. Either way, this b pawn is falling. Notice how the weaknesses in black's king side are defended here. And with an extra pawn, okay, black's position is going to be much better. Okay, in any case, what was played in the game instead is this move queen e2. And now black gobbled up the g-pawn, getting connected passers on the king side. White continued with queen c4 check, hoping for some counterplay to save the day. Maybe someday throwing in a check here and gobbling up this b-pawn was white's plan. King e7 was played. And after queen c8, it's important to notice queen c7 check was not possible, although that would have been nice because it would have gobbled up, this pawn, but not possible because it's defended by the queen. After queen c8 now, black played the move queen f3. And okay, the position is pretty hopeless for white now. He played a few more moves. He played queen e5. And now after queen f6 check, king d5, a really nice finish. Queen d6 check, and white resigned. White still has 2 more moves to play. The king could go to either c4 or to e4. However, both of these moves would be met with the same idea. What do you think? What would black play after queen e4? I'm sorry, if white plays king e4, how would black respond? Well, the idea is simply queen e6 check, checking the king, but also attacking the queen, which forces an exchange of queens. This also would be the case after king c4, simply queen e6 check, checking the king, attacking the queen when the king moves. When the queen captures. In any case, we have got these 2 connected pass pawns, which will be trivially winning for black. So I thought this was a really nice endgame. It demonstrated some nice tactical ideas and queen and pawn endings. I hope you guys enjoyed it as much as I did.